24-14. That is the score that has been ringing in every Buckeye fan's ears since New Year's Eve. You win the whole thing in 24, you feel invincible, and then you run into a buzzsaw called the Miami Hurricanes in the quarterfinals, and suddenly the offseason feels a lot colder. But here is the thing about college football in 2026. You do not get time to mourn. The transfer portal window slammed shut on Friday, and Ryan Day, despite hating this condensed January schedule, has been absolutely ruthless. We are looking at a roster that just lost Caleb Downs, Emeka Egbuka, and Josh Simmons to the NFL, yet somehow the talent composite might actually be going up. Today, we're breaking down the massive haul Ohio State just pulled in, what Matt Patricia is planning for his second year calling the defense, and whether Julian Sand is ready to turn a 32-touchdown season into a dynasty. Welcome back to The Scarlet Letter. I am Chloe, and with me to dissect the chaos of the last 3 weeks is our lead analyst, Alex.
It is good to be here, Chloe, and you are right. There is no mourning period anymore. You lose to Miami on December 31st, and by January 2nd, you're on Zoom calls with agents. It is brutal.
It is chaos, and I want to start exactly there with the context of this window. Ryan Day has been vocal, loudly vocal, about how much he despises this new January 2nd to 16th portal window. He called it a distraction for playoff teams. But looking at the haul, Alex, it does not look like he was distracted. It looks like he was multitasking at an elite level.
That is the irony, isn't it? Day hates the calendar, but he dominates it. You look at what they did in just 14 days. They identified the exact structural weaknesses that Miami exposed, specifically depth at safety and grit on the defensive interior, and they just went shopping. It wasn't the panic buying we saw from some other programs who missed the playoff. This was surgical. They brought in 16 scholarship transfers, but the quality at the top, landing Earl Little Jr. from Florida State and Qua Russaw from Alabama, that is not just filling holes, that is upgrading the chassis.
Let's dive into that, because the defense is where the anxiety is right now. We lose Caleb Downs, and let's be honest, you do not simply replace a guy who's probably going top 10 in the draft. Downs was the eraser. When Matt Patricia's scheme got complex last year, Downs fixed it. So now you bring in Earl Little Jr. and Terry Moore from Duke. Is this a one-for-one swap, or are we seeing Patricia change the geometry of the defense for 2026?
It is definitely a geometry change. You have to remember, Matt Patricia's background, going back to his New England days, he loves the three-safety look. He loves having versatile defensive backs who can play in the slot, play deep half, or come into the box. Caleb allowed him to cheat because Caleb could do all of that by himself. Without Caleb, Patricia is actually reverting to his preferred structural base, which is the three-safety shell. That is why getting both Little and Terry Moore is significant.
Explain that for the listener who might just see safety next to their names. How do they fit together?
So Terry Moore is your free safety. He was second-team All-ACC at Duke, had 4 interceptions. He is the ball hawk. He plays the deep middle, which allows everyone else to play aggressive. Then you have Earl Little Jr. He is listed as a safety, but at Florida State, he played a lot of nickel. He is fluid. He can cover slot receivers, but he hits like a linebacker. In Patricia's penny front, that 5-1 look we saw so much of against Texas last year, you need a guy who can survive in the box against the run, but not get torched by a slot receiver. Little is that guy. So you aren't asking one guy to be Caleb Downs, you're asking Terry Moore to handle the range and Earl Little to handle the physicality.
That makes sense. It is moneyballing the position. You can't recreate Caleb in the aggregate, but you can recreate the production. But let's talk about the front, because the other big headline was Qua Russaw transferring in from Alabama. This feels like a classic Ryan Day luxury signing, but is it? With Arvell Reese leaving to the draft, did they need another edge rusher this badly?
I don't think Russaw is a luxury. I think he is a necessity. Look at the Miami game again. In the fourth quarter, when the Buckeyes needed to stop, they couldn't get home with 4 rushers. They had to blitz, and Miami's quarterback just picked them apart. Losing Arvell Reese to the draft hurts more than people realize, because Reese was that hybrid linebacker edge who caused chaos. Russaw is a pure, violent edge setter. He was a 5-star recruit, top 40 nationally coming out of high school. He has that SEC power. Pairing him with Kenyatta Jackson Jr., who decided to come back for a 5th year, which, by the way, is massive, gives Patricia two legitimate bookends. It means you don't have to blitz to get pressure.
And that triggers the trickle-down effect. If you can get pressure with 4, Earl Little and Terry Moore can stay in coverage, it all connects. I want to pivot to the interior defensive line, though. We picked up John Walker from UCF. This one flew under the radar a bit compared to the Bama and FSU guys, but Walker is a refrigerator, 330 pounds.
He is a planet, and Ohio State desperately needed a planet. Losing Caden McDonald to the NFL left a massive void in the middle. We saw it in the Big Ten championship game, too. Teams were able to run duo and inside zone against the Buckeyes because they didn't have that anchor who commands a double team every single snap. John Walker is that guy. He's not going to get you 10 sacks. He might not even get 5, but he is going to eat up 2 blockers so that Sonny Styles, who is moving back to a more traditional linebacker role, can flow freely to the ball. Walker is the unsung hero of this class. If Ohio State has a top 5 run defense in 2026, send a thank you card to John Walker.
It is interesting you mentioned Sonny Styles. It feels like he has been on this team for a decade, and he has played 4 different positions. But if the defensive line can keep him clean, maybe we finally see the fully realized version of him. Let's switch sides of the ball, the offense. Julian Sayin. 32 touchdowns, over 3,600 yards in his first year as a starter. And yet, the Miami game left a sour taste. He struggled with the disguised coverages. What is the temperature on Sayin entering year 2?
The temperature is high, but it is optimistic. Look, that Miami defense was elite, and Sayin was effectively a redshirt freshman in terms of starting experience. The growth curve from year 1 to year 2 for quarterbacks in Ryan Day's system is usually exponential. Think about C.J. Stroud. The difference between his first start and his second year was night and day. Sayin has the arm talent, we know that. The question is processing speed, and the good news for him is that the weapons he has coming back are, frankly, unfair.
Unfair is the right word. We lose Emeka Egbuka, who was Mr. Reliable, but we return Jeremiah Smith, who is arguably the best player in college football, period. And now the rumors are confirmed. Chris Henry Jr. is expected to start opposite him. Can we just pause on the idea of Jeremiah Smith and Chris Henry Jr. on the same field? That feels illegal.
It is a defensive coordinator's nightmare. You cannot double-team both of them. Jeremiah Smith in year 3 is fully formed. He is an NFL receiver playing on Saturdays. But Chris Henry Jr., the buzz out of the Woody Hayes Center this winter is that he is actually faster than Smith. He's 6'5" with track speed, so if you roll your coverage to Jeremiah, Henry is one-on-one. If you play too high safety to protect against the deep ball, then you have Bo Jackson, who broke out as a true freshman last year, running into light boxes. It is pick your poison in the truest sense.
And they added depth there too. Devin McCourty from UTSA. Why go get a receiver from UTSA when you have 5 stars everywhere?
Because you need a slot technician. With Brandon Inniss likely playing more outside or moving around, McCourty is that gadget guy. He is explosive, he is great in space. Ryan Day loves those guys who can turn a 5-yard shallow cross into a 50-yard touchdown. McCourty gives them that yards after catch element that they lost a bit when Egbuka left. It is a smart, low-risk, high-reward pickup.
I want to ask about the tight ends, because this was a weird spot in the portal. They grabbed Mason Williams from Ohio U and Hunter Welsing from Northwestern, 2 transfers at tight end. Does that signal a lack of confidence in the developmental guys like Jelani Thurman?
I think it signals a shift in philosophy for Chip Kelly and Brian Hartline. They want to run more 12 personnel. That's 2 tight ends on the field. To do that in the Big Ten, you need bodies. Mason Williams is a receiver in a tight end's body. He had 48 catches at Ohio U. He is your flex guy. Hunter Welsing is a 7th-year senior. 7th year. He is a blocker. He's there to extend the offensive line. Getting both tells me they want to be able to morph from a spread passing attack to a power run game without substituting. It makes the offense unpredictable.
That versatility seems to be the theme of the entire 2026 roster. But I have to play devil's advocate here, Alex. We said all of this last year. The roster's loaded, Will Howard is the veteran leader, and they won the Natty in 24, sure. But 25 ended in the quarters. Is there a genuine concern that the pressure on Ryan Day is reaching a toxic level? Because if this Avengers roster doesn't at least make the title game, the conversation in Columbus gets ugly fast.
The conversation in Columbus is always one loss away from getting ugly. That is the job. But I actually think the pressure is slightly different this year. Winning the title in 24 bought Day some immunity, but the way they lost to Miami, getting physically pushed around in the fourth quarter, scared people. It looked like the Michigan losses of old. That is why the additions of Qua Russell and John Walker matter so much. This wasn't about getting flashier, it was about getting tougher. The skepticism isn't about talent, it is about toughness. Can this team grind out a win in January when it's 20 degrees and snowing in Columbus? That is the test.
And the schedule does them no favors. Opening with Texas in 25 was a statement, but the Big Ten slate in 26 is brutal. We have Oregon and Penn State. And we have to talk about the departures we didn't fill. The offensive line. They lost Josh Simmons, who went in the first round to the Chiefs. They lost Donovan Jackson. They brought in some depth, but are we trusting the development of guys like Luke Montgomery to step in and protect Cyan's blindside?
That is the single biggest question mark. Luke Montgomery and Austin Sierveld have to be ready. They got significant reps last year due to injuries, which was a blessing in disguise, as strange as that sounds. The coaching staff seems confident in Ethan Onyeonwa at tackle, who transferred in last cycle and played well. But offensive line is a chemistry experiment. You can't just plug and play transfers as easily there. If there is an Achilles heel for the 2026 Buckeyes, it is the left side of that line. If Cyan is running for his life, it doesn't matter if Chris Henry Jr. is open by 5 yards.
Right, and we saw that in the Miami game. The pocket collapsed, Sane panicked, turnovers happened. So let's zoom out. We are sitting here in January 2026. The roster is set, barring a few spring surprises. When you look at the landscape, Georgia's reloading, Texas is angry, Miami's the new king of the hill. Where does this Ohio State team slot in?
I think they are the safest bet to make the Final Four. The floor for this roster is 12 wins. You have a returning starter at quarterback who threw 30-plus touchdowns. You have the best receiver room in history, not hyperbole, history. And you have a defense that just added 3 NFL-caliber starters in the portal. The ceiling is the national championship. The variable is Matt Patricia. Can he synthesize these new pieces quickly? Last year, the defense started slow and got better. They can't afford a slow start this year.
It is funny you mentioned Patricia starting slow. I remember the panic after the Oregon game last year, everyone calling for his head. And then by November, they were shutting people out. Do you think his penny front scheme is sustainable in the Big Ten long term, or is it a gimmick that teams will figure out?
It is not a gimmick, but it is high risk. The penny front relies on your linebackers playing perfectly. It puts a lot of stress on the second level. That's why moving Sonny Styles back to linebacker is so critical. He has the size of a defensive end, but the speed of a safety. He is the skeleton key that makes the penny front work. If he gets injured, or if he struggles to read run fits, the whole thing can crumble. But when it works, it confuses quarterbacks because they don't know who is dropping and who is rushing. It's chaos by design.
Chaos by design. That feels like the theme for the entire Ryan Day era right now. He is orchestrating chaos in the portal to create chaos on the field. Before we wrap up, I want to give a shout out to one more transfer that people are sleeping on. Dalton Riggs, the long snapper from BYU.
I love that you brought up the long snapper.
Special teams matter. We lost John Furman. You miss one snap in a playoff game and the season ends. Riggs has experience. It is boring, but it is winning football.
You are absolutely right. The margin for error in the 12-team playoff is 0. You botch a punt, you go home. Ryan Day knows that. Every scholarship spot they used in this January window was calculated. No fluff. Riggs is a perfect example of that.
So, final verdict, Alex. We are looking at the 2026 season. Are you buying stock in the Buckeyes reclaiming the trophy?
I am buying heavily. The hunger factor is real. They tasted the mountaintop in 24. They got slapped in the face in 25. That is a dangerous combination. And frankly, Julian Sayin in year 2 with these receivers, I don't know how you stop it for 4 quarters. I think we are looking at the team to beat in 2026.
There you have it. The dynasty isn't dead, it was just taking a nap. Ohio State has reloaded, retooled, and apparently re-energized for a run at the title. It is going to be a long offseason waiting for kickoff. But if this transfer class is any indication, the Buckeyes are not planning on losing in the quarterfinals again. Thanks for listening to The Scarlet Letter. For Alex, I'm Chloe. We will see you next time.